The new Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion just got revealed, and it's going to make Eva run for her money.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we've got a brand new encounter ride line revealed to us, which is the new Narukami ride line for Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. And as said in the intro, it's going to make certain competitive decks run for the money as it counters very strong aspects of those decks. But more will make sense once we dive into these cards. And we start off with, of course, a new ride line, which brings us a new starter, which in this case is Spark Git Dragoon, and it's the generic starter, so we can immediately go into the Grade 1, which in this case is Red River Dragoon. And Red River Dragoon has the effect, although when the unit is rode upon by a Grade 2 whose only clan is Narukami, search your deck for up to one Eternal Thunderbolt, reveal it, and add it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. And Eternal Thunderbolt is the order card of this ride line, but we will go into that once we take a look at Kaiser Vermillion, because that makes more sense of what the order card actually does. Then Red River Dragoon also has the effect, auto Vanguard Circle, when this unit boosts, if your Grade 3 or greater Vanguard's only clan is Narukami, cost counterblast 1, choose one of your opponent's back row rearguard, bind it. If you did not bind, soul charge 2. So now we're actually binding back row rearguards instead of front row rearguards, what Narukami is used to known for, which is kind of interesting. It also doesn't specifically target one in the same column, so it really deviates from what Narukami is known for. Overall, it's honestly pretty decent, a back row snipe for a counterblast, as well as potentially getting 2 soul. That's not the greatest value, but what Narukami can do with the soul maybe warrants it to potentially put a counterblast into that if you need the soul on demand. Now, moving up to the Grade 2, we've got Thunderstorm Dragoon, and this Dragoon has the effect, although when a unit is rode upon by a Grade 3 whose only clan is Narukami, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to one card whose only clan is Narukami, reveal it, and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. So this is essentially a generic searcher for the archetype, which is going to be good because if you play this in premium, you can search anything essentially, and in standard, this is going to search out the key pieces you're going to need, as there are certain cards you really want to have in your hand, and this can also potentially search for persona right targets, which are also really good. But that also has, although when placed in a Vanguard circle, if your Vanguard's only clan is Narukami, soul charge 1, and this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So it's a 15k attacker that also generates soul, which is great. Sadly, the power doesn't stay. It's a one-time use only, but if you then need some extra shield, you can just intercept it away. So it's not that bad of a deal. Now, if we move up to the Grade 3, we've got, of course, Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion himself. And Vermillion has the effects, act on Vanguard Circle once a turn, cost counterblast 1, choose 2 of your units whose only clans are Narukami, and they get power plus 5k until the end of turn. During this turn, when this unit would attack, you may choose 2 of your opponent's rearguard circles, and this unit battles the units on the chosen circles as well as your opponent's Vanguard. But on top of that, this card also has the effect, auto Vanguard Circle once a turn. At the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If you play in normal order during this turn and your opponent has 4 or less cards in their damage zone, cost discard 1, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards and deal 1 damage to it. So a discard 1 for a ping honestly is really good value, because you can just discard a Grade 3 you cannot use anymore, or a certain card that's useless at this point, and now you can immediately deal 1 damage for almost no resources, which honestly is pretty good trade-off here. But interestingly enough, this doesn't specify a specific order, so you can run any generic normal order and this interact with that, which is really good. But keep in mind, the Grade 1 of the ride line searches out one of those orders, so you can essentially guarantee that this effect is gonna go off on that first Grade 3 turn, so you're gonna do some decent amount of damage and pressure on your opponent once you ride up to Grade 3. But so far, Vermilion doesn't sound too imposing. Yes, it deals potentially 1 damage, and it gives 2 units 5k power, you attack 3 units of your opponent's out of the field, but I think we can do more. And we can do more once we take a look at the new order that we teased earlier. Because here we have Eternal Thunderbolt. And Eternal Thunderbolt has the effect, this card may be played from your drop zone or hand if you have a Vanguard with Vermilion in its card name, whose only clan is Narukami. Choose one of your Vanguards, and until the end of turn, it gets continuous Vanguard Circle. When your opponent's rearguards that this unit hit would be retired from the rearguard circle, they are instead bound. And continues a Vanguard Circle. If your opponent has no rearguards, all of your front row rearguards get power plus 5k. If this card was played from the drop zone, bind it. So a lot of things going on here. First off, this thing now turns the hit into immediately binds. And I think we've seen this like in previous iterations, in other formats. But this is going to be very good because now it can prevent certain resource loop on our opponent's side of the field if the very important cards hit the drop zone. So that's a good interaction. Now, on top of that, because we're attacking multiple cards, certain intercept abilities won't activate. Think of Gear Chronicle or even Eva with their powerful rearguard intercept units. Now you can deal with those cards quite effectively without wasting a lot of resources. But on top of that, if our opponent's field is empty, now we empower our units even further. And we already gave our units plus 5k power, so now our attackers, if we gave the 5k to the front row, can potentially get an additional 10k. But this 5k is continuous, so if we get some multi-attack going on here and switch units or something, then those units also get the additional 5k power buff from this particular effect, which is really, really good. And it's not that hard to clear opponent's board because we are going to attack into 2, so that's already 2 we're potentially clearing, but then we also have our grade 1, which is another snipe as well. And because we are in Dragon Empire, we have enough other effects which allow us to clear opponent's board, so it's relatively easy to get this extra power buff on top of everything. And keep in mind, because we now use this order card, we can ping our opponent for damage as well. But on top of that, there's an interesting aspect of this card, because this card can be played from hand as well as from drop zone. Now with one order, you can have 2 grade 3 turns at full power, because on turn 3 you can use this order from hand, and then on turn 4 you can use the order from drop. So that makes this order card very versatile and quite impactful, and probably one of the better archetype order cards themselves, because you don't have to draw into multiple copies every single turn. As crazy as things sound right now, things are going to get even better because we have 2 more support cards that are pretty damn spicy for the archetype. Because first off, we've got this grade 1 Rising Phoenix, which has the effects auto from drop zone. When either player's card is bound by your card's effect during your turn, if your Vanguard's only clan is Narukami, cost Soulless 1, call this card to the rearguard circle. So now we have a potential multi-attack option. Because keep in mind, when our Vanguard hits into our opponent's units and we use the order card, they are bound, thus being able to activate this effect. But we can also use this once we boost with the grade 1, which is probably the more ideal situation, because keep in mind, if we attack with the Vanguard, clear opponent's board, now their board is potentially empty, our units are going to get the passive 5k power. Now we want to attack with the unit, and then afterwards we want to attack with the grade 1 boosting column, so we can recall the Rising Phoenix on top of the other column that already attacked, so we can maximize our power output on our attacks. And yes, this is just an 8k, but because of the extra 5k that we're going to get of the passive ability of the order card, this is going to be a 13k attacker, and during a Persona Ride turn, it's going to be a 23k attacker. So those are really good, decent numbers for just soul cost, which is very similar to its V version, which was also a recurring card that you could call over and over again. But unlike the V version card, this card has a built-in sec outlet, as it has the effect, act on rearguard circle cost, retire this unit, choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So now, the following turn, we can send it to the drop zone, give something 5k power, and now we set it up to have another attack. And now what I said earlier about using Counterblast to get 2 soul with the grade 1 sounds pretty appealing, because those 2 soul basically equate to 2 of these Rising Phoenix being called. And there is a potential of having 5 attacks. You can attack with your side columns, then attack with your Vanguard. They hit into one of their rearguards, they are now being bound, and now you can activate multiple Rising Phoenix from your drop zone to recall them on the board to have potentially 5 attacks. And potentially call them as boosters as well if you want to go that direction. So this is honestly pretty good. And yeah, this is going to make Narukami have at least a pretty high ceiling once things start rolling. But they have yet another card, which is this grade 2 Dragonic Death Size, and it has the effects continuous rearguard circle during a turn. If your opponent has no front row rearguards, this unit gets power plus 5k. So this works similar to its original counterparts in Narukami with checking the front row, so that's honestly decent enough and it's pretty easy to fulfill, and 50k attacker is fine. But that also has the effect auto rearguard circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard whose only clan is Narukami, cost Soulless 2, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, bind it, If you did not bind, draw 1. So this is just more consistency for the deck, because drawing into more pieces is going to be very important, but also being able to pop more cards on the field helps you with fulfilling the condition to clear the entire board consistently every single turn. The Soulless 2 is a relatively heavy investment, but with the extra soul charge options we have within the Narukami cards themselves, it is doable to use this card in your engine. And that's basically all the cards that we have for Narukami, and honestly, a pretty decent start for the archetype, because we have a lot already right here. We have retire options, including bind options, we have soldier options, we have multi-tack, we have consistent multi-tack, we have some power buffs on the field here, and a very small draw engine built in the mechanic itself, with searchability options as well. So there's a lot of consistencies built in the engine, but I think we need more consistent draw power to make the deck as consistent as possible, because you want to get to your Rising Phoenixes as well as your key pieces on a consistent basis to make the deck going. But once the engine is going, it is very hard to stop it. Maybe in the mirror match is going to be a bit awkward because you start binding their combo pieces like their Rising Phoenixes, and then things can be a bit tricky, but then it comes down to who plays the mirror match most skillful in order to maximize your resource out of all your cards. But this is basically everything that I wanted to go over today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this new Narukami Vermillion ride line. Are you just excited as I am for these cards? Because I cannot wait to try these ones out. And what are your thoughts on the potential of what this deck can do? Do you think it's going to be very good in the current meta? Do you think it's going to change things up a little bit? Or do you think it's a bit too underpowered as it is right now and just needs a bit more cards to upgrade its consistency output, or maybe some other aspects of the deck? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!